Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is show how watercolor paint can go from dark to light. So you first want to wet your brush, load your brush full of paint, and get some paint down there. Like quite a bit of pigment. More paint. And then I'm going to keep going to the water dish and dilute it with water, which will make it lighter. So the next one's a flat wash, so you just want to load your brush full of paint and then pick a direction and go with it. And try to stay in the box as best you can.
Can I talk to you during this?
Stippling. Load your brush full of paint and then get a little bit of the water off. And you want a clustering of dots. And we're going to do a few different colors. So this would be good for foliage if you had a bunch of different shades of green to show like leaves and stuff like that. And the more you do it, the more they could potentially bleed together, which could work for you, depending on the colors that you've put down.
Okay, put it again.
Wet on wet, the first thing you want to do is wet the paper.
Yeah, I'll throw them over here.
And maybe incorporate a little bit of metallic. And then another color, maybe regular watercolor. And it just sort of bleeds together. Which is kind of cool. It sort of looks like tie-dye, I think. And then I want you to do a lift. So put even color down, sort of like, you know, do a flat wash. And then you're going to take paper towel, lift up to create some texture. And it's kind of going to give some highlights. You can also use sponges. Dry brush, load your brush full of paint, get a lot of the water off onto a paper towel, and you can have some nice line, which could be used for grass, texture on a tree, fur on like the pet portrait like I was showing earlier. So for the mask, I'm going to show you guys how to use masking fluid at some point, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. So you can also use masking tape. So this is to preserve the white of the paper. Paint right on top. And then when the paint's dry, you know, gently peel the tape back. Just do a flat wash over it. Plastic wrap, I like to start with a wet on wet. Use a couple different colors so you get a little bit of a bleed.
You should switch into English.
And then you can either crumple plastic on it or stretch it for line. And again, once it's dry, you can pull it off and you'll have some nice texture there.
Is that your only thing?
So for the cutting and scraping, so for some highlights, you can take an X-Acto knife and do it a couple different ways. First, make some lines and cuts before you paint, just so you can see the difference. And it should, when you pre-cut them, fill in. But if you want highlights, once your paint is dry, you could cut on top, like on this one. And it should make white line. And on watercolor paper, it works much better.
So what's the size that it is? So is it 6 long? Like,
Can you see if this is still
this is
on?
It is.
Is it? Okay.
Okay.
And it's showing my thing there? Okay. So for the splatter, that's what I wanted the toothbrush for. So wet it a little bit. You might even want to create a stencil when you want to isolate an area when you're doing your project, like your pet portrait. And, you know, it can get some crazy splattering on there. See how it goes everywhere? But if I had a stencil and isolated the area, you can control it. So the gouache, that's what I needed, the little bit of white temper paint. So mix your watercolor with white temper paint. And then just fill an area. I'm going to do a gouache line on top of that. My color overlap. So first you need to paint 2 lines before you start this. Let them dry. And then paint a couple more lines on top, and you can see how the color changes with an overlap. Sol, it's a same sort of start like you did the plastic wrap. Do a wet on wet, a couple different colors. And then you sprinkle some salt on top, and when it's dry, use a blade to scrape it off. Use the wax of a crayon. You can do a resist and paint right over it. I should use a different color. Let's see. Yeah, and then the water comes right off that wax. And for the metallic watercolor, I'd like you to just experiment with a little bit of metallic. It's a nice shine to it. Be good for maybe the eyes, if you wanted like a little bit of a shine in the eyes for your pet portrait. And then there are watercolor crayons that you can sort of color with. And then take a wet brush and blend them. And same thing with a watercolor crayon. I mean a watercolor pencil. Should be nice for like maybe little details, like around an eye and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna blend them together.